Hello. This is the 52nd of 50, and then it all stops and starts again. That was very quick.
I'm getting really good at this.
Yeah, right? Aren't we all?
It's so nerve-wracking, and I always feel like I'm going to really mess it up. But wow,
But
today's
wow,
our lucky day.
how are you?
I'm
Happy
great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm trying to not show the mess that is behind me, but I needed to be in front of a window.
Well,
Um, how can I ask you a question?
sure.
How long have you been in business?
Since 2002, so our
Oh,
20th
since 2002.
birthday next year.
Wow, because you have amassed an enormous body of work.
I guess 20 years does that.
Yeah, 20 years does that. Oh, look at this. Someone saying, Louis, you're a gift to New York City. Um, okay, so where did you grow up?
So
Oh,
I'm a very
they
glam.
said they can't hear us. I'm assuming they mean you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay, so I'm going to hold my phone up. So I'll try to hold it because I don't have a fancy
Or
stand.
just be
I can. I'll yell.
okay, cool.
But just tell me if you can't hear me.
Well,
I can up my volume easily. Okay, so you asked where I grew up.
hmm.
Right in the middle of California, Central Valley. It's an hour and a half south of San Francisco and Sacramento, called Modesto. It's farmland, nowhere glamorous, but everything grew really well.
Um, and did you have anybody with green thumb in your family?
Did I have any what?
Any family members with green thumbs to guide?
They all did. Yeah. Everybody, we gardened like crazy. So my grandpa, my mom, like all my aunts and uncles, like gardening was sort of our thing, and things grew really well. So that was definitely in our blood and in my DNA. So that came easily and naturally. Yeah.
And when you went to study, I mean, did you go to study it, or did you just know?
So I went to study horticulture and landscape design, which I love because gardens are such a big influence. And I think there's nothing more beautiful than a garden. But I found out that my attention span wasn't quite cut out for garden design. Planting oak trees and waiting decades
Well, yeah. Yeah.
wasn't my cup of tea. And so I kind of stumbled into flower design, and I knew that was an industry, but I didn't really know. I didn't really understand that I could kind of transform space with flowers and branches and fruit and plants on a big scale, and then have the luxury of having it all be done at midnight, and it would be ancient history and on to the next. Whereas
Is,
garden design and interior
is that,
design tend to go on forever.
is that the luxury or is that the challenge?
both. Like, it's the challenge, but that's what I love about it. And then when the job's done, the job's done. So of course
Right.
it's a challenge because, listen, you don't get a second chance. Like, you can't screw it up. Guests are arriving at such and such time, the party's happening. There's no like, oh, we'll get to it tomorrow, or it came in wrong, we're gonna come back in 3 or 4 weeks. No, you always have to have a plan B and C in your back pocket.
Mm-hmm.
But then the great part of it is when it's over, come Monday morning for a Saturday wedding, it's so far in the rearview mirror, and you're just on to the next.
So how would you describe your profession? What do you do? Because you do a lot.
I do a lot. I mean, I play with flowers a lot. I'm in the hauling business.
You're in the what?
The hauling business.
Right.
I feel
Totally.
like all we do is load up trucks and haul stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Haul, unload, load it back up, haul it back. Okay, so my job is kind of divided into two parts: the parts that pay the bills, and then the parts that made me, quasi famous. And part one is event design, so weddings, parties. Whether they're in a ballroom or a tent in East Hampton or down here in Palm Beach, or the putting flowers in the trash can, which is my flower flash, kind of my passion project, which is what everybody knows about. So that's the kind of that's the night job, so to speak. The day job is event design. So that's it in a nutshell.
But you got into it because of, or not?
I got into, yeah. So basically, like in college, I was working for a summer. I had a summer job at a private golf club in Seattle, and I was just there basically to pull the weeds. And for whatever reason, I became friends with one of the members, and she was like 75, and I was 19, and we became best friends, as one does. And I don't know, fast forward a year or so, I started doing like flowers for inside the clubhouse, and they became my guinea pigs. And so I would grow things outside, and I would cut them, and I'd bring them inside, and I started doing their parties and their Christmas decorations, and then it turned into weddings.
Overtook the club?
Yeah, more or less. It was great. For 7 years, they were my guinea pigs, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing, so I experimented and took that opportunity just to try everything out. Yeah. So they got some real beauties.
Obviously, there's a nice symmetry to the flower flash of you just taking over this club.
Yeah, I mean, I just tend to like be a bulldozer in a china closet and just come in and take over. So
okay, we're there for 7 years. Only summers?
No, it became a full-time thing. So I was there for 7 years, and I started doing. I started working with my friend Deborah there. I met her after a couple of years, and we started doing a lot of weddings and a lot of parties in Seattle, and it was a lot of fun. Our kind of last big kickoff was Bill Gates' New Year's Eve party for Y2K 2000 New Year's Eve party. So that was fun. But then I thought. Then I was going to move to New York, and I thought I wanted to go into interiors. So I moved to New York in February of 2000, thinking that I'm going to, because I've always, gardens and interiors are my two big loves. And I'm like, you know what?
They're not unrelated.
They're not unrelated. And, that's where that's where so much of my inspiration comes. Like a lot of people look at paintings or fashion. I'm definitely come from the house and garden world. So I thought I was going to move to New York and get into interior design. Lo and behold, one has to make a living, and I was not at any point to be filing carpet swatches for free. So I stayed in my business and started my own business in 2002, and kept it very, kind of under the radar, and developed a nice business for, I don't know, 8 or 9 years, and about 10 years. And then in 2016 is when I did the first flower flash. What's that?
Your client list.
Yeah, it's a pretty good client list. So I'm pretty lucky because it's kind of a low key wealthy group of people.
And it's word of mouth.
And it's word of mouth. So it's been it's been great just nurturing that over the years, and word of mouth has done me so well. And and then as the years, and at this point decades of rolling by, I've done multiple projects for the same family, and all the bar mitzvahs, and now then the weddings. And so it's like, you're getting old when you're doing your weddings for kids that you did their bar mitzvahs.
I'm like constantly shocked when I go to a client, a kid that I knew at 10 is like 30.
Yeah. Like what happened? And then
they are not, they are 14.
Exactly.
So everybody, I'm sure, would love to know how flower flashing came about.
Yeah. So the first one was in 2016, in October of 2016. But the idea had kind of been in my brain for a couple of years prior. And I've always been a creature.
How did you describe it to yourself?
So I've always been a creature who likes contrast. And so while I love, doing beautiful flowers and beautiful interiors and beautiful rooms and beautiful tents, that's all very lovely. There's something about having, like, I've always had this inclination to bring flowers out to kind of the grittiness of the metropolitan environment that is Manhattan, that is New York City, because I love that juxtaposition of the graffiti and the chain link fence and the construction sites with something that's so precious as flowers. Because obviously it's expected in a beautiful room, but like you really don't expect it. So, so there was always that part, like, is there a way to kind of bring flowers out of the ballroom into a greater demographic and kind of show, people who don't get to see it? Because, in New York, like what are our biggest luxuries? Nature and space and time. And I thought, like, if there was a way I could bring health is, yes, well, we take that for granted, but that's top on the priority. But I think that nature and health are very related, at least mental health. So fast forward a couple of years, and I was like, I kept thinking about it. Business is going well, but I was starting to get a little bit bored. I'm like, okay, I'm no longer the new kid on the block. I've been here for a while. Like, now I want to find a way to give back, but in a way that feels relevant to what I love, which are flowers, clearly. But at the same time, like with the onset of social media and Pinterest and everything, and suddenly flowers and beautiful imagery were very kind of commonplace. You could just go on and see amazing pictures, instantly. And I sort of like, well, what's something I haven't seen? Like, I want to see something new. And obviously, putting flowers on a trash can was something I had not necessarily seen before.
Also totally art.
Yeah, so I'm happy to let other people say that. For me, it's more like,
of course it is.
I wasn't really like going at it from that angle. It was more like there's something so freeing about, well, let me kind of backtrack. So as and as a designer and owning your business, how how glamorous the minutia of running a business is. Like, you've got everything from personnel issues to you're dealing with contracts to AutoCADs. Like, it's not, it's not just decorating as fun kind of thing. And being a floral designer is not just playing with flowers, and like there's all the other crap that goes with it that keeps, that's essential to keeping a business going. Excuse me. So the idea of like getting back in the kitchen and like, doing something a little off the cuff and spur of the moment that was kind of my own thing, and not necessarily having a financial transaction. So if people didn't like it, it was no big deal, because it was, it was my own deal. That was really fun. And I'm a fast designer, so I like speed. I like the idea of getting up and doing a flower flash and doing something super quick is very appealing to me. So, it's a combination of like wanting to give back, needing to give back, needing to push myself creatively, and just to like see something different, kind of is how it started. And then the first one was the John Lennon Memorial in Central Park. Mm-hmm. So that was in October of 2016.
And did you have to get permits or anything?
No. So that's the thing. Like, it's all rogue. Like, there's no asking for permission. It's just going out and doing it, and asking forgiveness if need be. So the first one was excuse me, was the John Lennon Memorial. We had done this midweek event, and we had all these carnations and dahlias left over, and the guys were dragging them in the studio in these clear bags. I'm like, wow, they're really beautiful. So, and they still have some life in them. So what can we do? Let's figure something out. So Arini, who's on my team, and I kind of gave her the project to sort of like starting scouting out imagery and locations throughout the city.
That's huge relief, because I was that they were at an event prior to, because I was thinking, what an extravagance. Fantastic. We all benefit from it, but yeah. It was worrying me. So this is good.
Well, I'm not going to let you off the worry hook quite so easy. So as much as possible, we use them leftover from events, and definitely, pre-COVID, we could do that quite often. I also utilize a lot of old flowers that the flower market has that my growers can't necessarily sell anymore. They've been in the cooler too long, so they don't have a shelf life, so it's perfect for that. But at the end of the day,
That's interesting. I don't know anything about that. I didn't know
yeah,
anything like that.
no, like, if they'll get some stuff in and if it sits there for a week and it hasn't sold, then it's kind of no good,
Yeah.
but it still has a few hours left in it. So, but then at the end of the day, it has to look good. So I do what I need to do to supplement it. And
Right. Is somebody calling you? Okay. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. If you're going to do it, and especially because this is an expression, this is your baby that you've been ruminating
Yeah.
for about, well, how does one say that? You ruminate on, or do you just ruminate?
I
Anyway,
just ruminate.
so you've been thinking about it a long time.
Yeah.
You just cannot not do it well. Even if
No, it has to, at first when only a few people were seeing it, but then it turned into a thing and it's like, all right, well, each one has to kind of outdo the one prior. But
so at what time of day did you do this?
generally it's early in the morning. So depending on what time the sun comes up, it can be anywhere from 5 to 6:30 in the morning. I like to get in before the city wakes up.
Okay, so for people who don't know what this is, you have to explain more. Like you get to the site of the Immaculate Memorial,
Yeah.
and you've got so many.
Yeah, basically I have a van full of flowers. So it's like racks of flowers, boxes of flowers. What's that? How many people? There's myself, Manny, my driver, usually one designer, Tawana, and then Arini, who runs the camera. So we 4, sometimes more, sometimes less, but generally 4 is the perfect number.
Mm-hmm.
So we unload, we set these things up in 20, 30 minutes. Faster is better. Manny's behind the broom, sweeping things up. Arini's documenting it. Tawana and I are shoving in flowers as fast as we can. And we sweep it up and then take off. And then whatever happens.
How well do you know what the end result is going to look like?
Yeah, ish. I mean, obviously I know I don't want to over plan it.
Right. There needs to be
it needs exactly. And it's a very guttural thing.
I lost you. I think
so
you
weird.
Mike for a minute.
Hold on.
So you were saying it's very
all coming in. Yeah, it's very. I don't want to over plan it because then I lose the spontaneity of it and and they're not perfect. Like they're fast, so they're not. It's not like a photo shoot. It's not every flower is not in its perfect place. It's
your volume. I think it's probably no.
Call was coming in.
Oh, okay, good. That means it's not.
No, it was a call.
So, when you first did it, is there a signature? Like, do you leave a card? What?
No, no, there's not. Okay, no, we mark it, we tag it. So we do a stencil, and it's LMD times NYC, and that's done with spray chalk paint. So it's not paint. It's like adhesive chalk. So it goes away, and so it's actually not defacing anything. So that's our tag. So at the base of every trash can or whatever installation we do, I mark it with that stencil.
Okay, so it's 2016. You've just done this. What was like?
Yeah. So
did somebody call and say, "Is this you? Did you do this?" Like what? It sounds so much fun. It's like treasure hunt, beauty, artwork, a blessing to the city. It's like a million things wrapped up into one.
Yeah, so we did it and didn't really know what was going to happen, but we posted it on Instagram, and the first one stayed up for 3 days, and it got so much coverage and so much traction. And I mean, the rest is history. They weren't even called flower flashes at that point. They didn't even have a name, But all I knew is that doing that first one, it was so much fun and it was such a dopamine rush. You feel a little nervous because you don't know if what you're doing is legal or not.
They're all the fans on flowers.
Yeah. exactly.
The flower ordinance.
Well, there, yeah. So, and some of them, they didn't last, wouldn't last that long. Like we timed some pretty poorly, where I've done them in trash bins, and literally 20 minutes later, the Department of Sanitation rolls around and away it goes. So that's not ideal, but you can't do what you got to do.
Right, you can't anticipate everything. Though
Yeah.
what only has to happen once for you to try and figure out like sanitation schedules, right?
So yeah,
I mean, have you been there when a sanitation worker has come up and you've been like,
oh, they know us at this point.
yeah,
Like they totally know us, and we've been to the offices, and yeah, like at one point, like Manny, who's my driver, like we were setting one up, and the Department of Sanitation went by, and there's Manny, and he waved to him, like, all right, yeah. Manny, you're known. Like they all know who we are at this point.
Yeah. And when did obviously Instagram, the world saw you, but what were those first conversations with reporters?
I don't even remember like who covered it at first. Honestly, I couldn't even tell you. Like, It started to get picked up. Like people started, Vogue covered it at the beginning. I mean, it's been covered, and then then the New York Times at some point, Wall Street Journal. So we had the usual, then the local, yeah. Like the West Side Rag. We've been there a couple times. And then it started to go international. A lot of international publications have covered it. And then during COVID, it went crazy. Like everybody, like all over the world. Like there was so much press.
Well, you also introduced a whole trend. Like all of these restaurants are openings of buildings. Everything. There's so many places now that are draped in
flowers. Yeah, I think some of that was going on in London prior. Like the facade of Annabelle's would be completely covered in silk flowers, but those were all fake. They're not real flowers. So it's like it's one thing to be something faux, and it's quite something entirely different to have all fresh flowers.
Have you been flown somewhere to do it?
I have. I did it in London in June of last year. So that was a lot of fun. And the biggest one being at the Eros Fountain in Piccadilly Square, which was enormous. So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
And it's obviously in the book, which I have. So again, everybody, I wrote it in yesterday's post, but you have to go to the website, first of all, to see a bunch of amazing events, but also you can get a signed copy if you go to Louis Miller Design.
Yeah, we sell the books online, and they're all signed.
And it is, so perfect for Mother's Day.
That's right. That's coming up.
So what have you done?
I think at this point we're probably just under 110, maybe. I feel like with the book, we were right around 97, 90, 95, 96, but we're well over 100.
How has this transformed your business?
Well, it's been interesting because obviously it's like, from going kind of, my comfort zone's always been under the radar, and I've always had a very nice business, but it's kind of off the beaten path and not in the public eye, which is my preferred.
You picked a really horrible thing.
Yeah. So which was my preferred place to be. So it's definitely like, I'm definitely, forever for the rest of my life, the guy who puts flowers in trash cans. That's going to be on my tombstone. So love it or hate it. Like I'm not going to live that one down. It's definitely brought a lot, it's brought a lot of attention to the business. It was good during COVID because obviously that was such a rough time for the private event industry, and we pivoted and we started our Flower Flash boxes, which were the boxes of fresh flowers that came directly from Holland. So that was great because it went to people's homes. So, and then it's just, it's been great, doing the book, doing speaking engagements, a fair amount of demonstrations and public speaking, and
can't hear you.
calling right now.
Of course.
We're setting up 2 parties right now, so of course every vendor is calling me.
So I would imagine that where before you might have been an artist, this experience has transformed how people think of you. So I think there's, just like when people think, oh, a decorator, oh, an event planner, whatever like basic understanding there may be, when you do something so transformative, literally and figuratively, and do it on your own as an expression, I'm sure that everybody thinks of you now as an artist. And that must be a wonderful thing for your day job, because you have made clear that your relationship to fantasy is solid and that you should be let alone.
Yeah, your lips to God's ears. I wish it were that easy.
Oh!
Because at the end of the day, like I'm in the service industry like anybody else. So you got a bride coming in or you got clients coming in, they want what they want or whatever they've seen on Pinterest. And so it's like, it's like, ironically, like, at 20 years of doing it, every time I'm doing a job, it's like starting from scratch again. You go through the same process. It's just like, you got to prove yourself. Like, especially if it's a client that you haven't worked with before, to develop that trust. You can't just sit back and like, let me do it. Let me do my thing. But
so having the
love about it. What's that?
Having a body of work is hugely helpful.
It helps. Yeah, definitely.
What has been a favorite project? You don't have to name names.
I can't even say, because I'm one of those people that, like, once I do a project, it's in the rearview mirror. My next project's my favorite project. I'm also one of those people that's never very satisfied. Like, I'm never perfectly content. Like, it's never good enough. So it's always like, all right, keep.
Build your whole life long.
Yeah. It's like there's no satisfaction.
That's a little sad story.
Well, it's like Martha Graham has a very famous statement about creative discontent. Like, as long as you're trying, you're never going to, in your mind, you always have one vision of something and it never quite gets there, but you just keep trying and hope that.
Well, you don't want to be a dog. Well, why taking care of a dog? There's also Icarus, right? Don't fly too close to the sun. Just be happy. So when you set up, do you have like a whole storage space full of stuff?
Yes.
Because you've got, there's so much content in all.
There's so much stuff, urns, pedestals, vases, candle holders.
Flowers you do under the domes. They almost look like specimens.
The glass terrarium, like the glass, domes. Yeah. I got a lot of domes.
How do you feel about lighting?
About lighting?
Yeah.
It's crucial. Like, lighting is everything, because flowers, especially like if you're doing an event, like if you don't have lighting, why are you spending all these thousands of dollars on flowers if you're not bathing the room in the most beautiful, soft, ambient lighting? Yeah, lighting.
Do you be on top of that industry? Do you have to be up to date?
I got all my vendors that I work with, but when I'm designing a room, I creatively want to be in charge of everything you see, and that's working with the lighting designer. That's getting the lighting done the way I like it, because the way I like it versus another designer, could be two different things. So pretty much everything you look at, I want to have my fingerprints on to some degree. Part of me is just a control freak, but that's also, that's what we do the flowers. It's not, I want to create the space, but like everything has to come together and be perfect in order for the flowers to look their best.
So china,
linens, the room layout. Yeah.
And this is all stuff you have on hand, or this is where your vendors then come in?
It's a combination. So it's like you're renting stuff, you're bringing in stuff from vendors, you're buying new stuff, you're having stuff fabricated, you have stuff in your inventory. that you know, smoke and mirrors, baby. Like that's the name of the game.
What would you say is the perfect amount of time to plan like a wedding?
Well, I think a year is too much, even though we do it.
Because like you sour on your decisions, or
Yeah, it's just like honestly, like I know people do it because you got to reserve your vendors and you got to reserve your venues and stuff, but like I would say between 8 and 9 months is the kind of the sweet spot.
mm-hmm.
And personally, because obviously I like doing things fast, if you come to me and you want to do it in 2 months, I think that's brilliant because it kind of
Yeah.
eliminates a lot of the back and forth and you just have to cut to the chase and figure it out. But when it's over a year, it's just, you know, it's just repetitious. And we're like, all right, let's put a deposit on the calendar, but let's really not talk about it until
Right.
closer because you're just going to change your mind 5 times. You're just going to be designing it 2 or 3 times. And we just had to do that last year. All the weddings that were postponed from COVID and then got reassigned to a new venue and a new time of year. And it's just like, oh my God, you're redesigning some of these jobs 3 times, 3 or 4 times.
Right. Yeah. Thank heaven for you,
Yeah.
because you know to be the bride, be the bat mitzvah person or what, keep losing, you know, your plot to great ceremony,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, pillow making. When you do this, do you also get a photographer for for
I do sometimes. I have a photographer I'll bring in. You know, generally speaking, like because I know all the photographers and I like the industry is actually quite small. You know, the client, the photographer that the client hires, a lot of times gets very good in shots. But you know, if it's a special project and I want to make sure it's documented, I'll bring in an event photographer.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
I noticed in your questionnaire that your decorating style, as one can intuit it from your answer, is on the tailored masculine side. So it's fun to think of it juxtaposed to flowers.
I know. So yeah, the way I live definitely is much more tailored and masculine.
Mhm.
But that's I think in contrast to like the color and the layers and the you know, and the energy that's hey guys, come on. I have 3 dogs, and so actually the fact that you haven't heard them before now is pretty good. But it is definitely like because my work is so colorful and there's so much energy and visual, you know, layers that I pull back at home.
I want to admit to you here now that I am terrible with flowers. Love beautiful
Yeah.
flowers, but I am terrible. I mean, I couldn't even do a bouquet.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's good for the rest for me. You know?
But I don't even like what happened. Why did that drop out of my so
you can't
crazy.
be good at everything.
Well, I mean, that's a pretty significant thing to be bad at in the world of design. But I mean, I don't know the names of things.
Yeah, don't drive yourself crazy because they're changing all the time too. Like, you know, you blink and new varieties come out and there's certain flowers that are the new flavor of the month. And it's like, how can you keep up with it?
There's definitely like trending. What's your favorite?
Yeah. I mean, I always go back to the black and white anemone. I think it's one of my very favorites. I could just use hundreds of them all the time. I love them.
I'm purple. I'm the purple.
Yes, and then yes, I love the lavender. There's some that are kind of a lavender purple too that have like about 40 shades of lavender in in one flower. So they're a favorite. I don't know.
Do people do they ever pick the date of their event to coincide with the seasonality of a flower?
I'm sure they do. I don't, you know, honestly, when I'm working with clients, we don't even necessarily talk about what the actual flowers are until much later in the process. Obviously, if you're getting married in May or June, you're like, okay, perfect. You're in peony season. Mm-hmm. We got to use them, you know, and nobody doesn't like peonies. So that's a shoe in. Or if you're in October or, you know, September, October, it's dahlia season. You know, if you're in April, blossom branches. But Generally not, and I don't like to plan an event around a flower because it leaves too much chance for something to go wrong.
Right. And again, it seems like you loathe the static. You want that in the moment.
I want to save some of that serendipity so it keeps its energy, and doesn't feel too overly wrought, I guess.
So somebody asked, and I'm sure I know the answer, but how did scent influence your arrangements? I saw in the white wedding, you had narcissus
Yeah.
on a table, and I was wondering, I was like, that must be the entry table, not the dining table.
No, it was actually on the dining table because that space was so vast that it's if you're in a small enclosed room with not a lot of air circulation, then yes, it can be very overpowering. When you're in one of those spaces, like one of the Cipriani buildings, and it's just so vast, there's so much air circulation, it's not overwhelming at all. And so I love scent. If I can bring in jasmine or gardenias or, even lilies, dare I say, if they're in a church, I think smells. No, it's like, if it's in a big enough space to get a little waft, but if you walk in and it's overpowering, sure, nobody wants that. But I love scent. I mean, I think scent is that sort of unseen layer that just makes it all come alive. Yeah.
Well, what's your favorite venue in New York City?
Favorite venue?
Yeah.
The New York Public Library.
Yeah. I've been to.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, the architecture is so beautiful, the columns, it's just such a magnificent, stoic, place.
And iconic. It is an icon.
Yeah, it's iconic.
Yeah. I know I'm asking you all these like practical issues, but I'm fascinated by this whole the discipline, because it's so foreign. It's so different from what I do.
Yeah.
What about outdoors? Like
outdoors?
that, you've got a million events outdoors.
Yeah.
You must also have had a million events where you've had to hit the brakes and pull it in.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about an outdoor anything is that that's fine and dandy, but you have to have a plan B that everybody feels just as good about as plan A, because there is literally a 50% chance that it's going to rain.
Right.
So we're not in Beverly Hills. We cannot depend on, LA weather. The Northeast is extremely temperamental, and ideally, sure, but we don't go into anything without a solid B plan and sometimes a C plan, because we don't get a chance. We can't scratch our head and like, let's come back to this. No, it's gotta plow ahead.
Now that you've been in the city since 2002, you say?
2000 since 2000.
Since 2000.
Yeah.
It seems to me, especially with the flashes, even if you've gone to London, that you are now a total New Yorker, right?
I mean, I guess that kind of gets there. Yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of like, that's my. Yeah, if that what makes me a New Yorker, then that's fine. That I'll take that after 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, I'm constantly saying that in these talks, that New York is all about people who come to New York.
Yeah.
That's what makes up the DNA of New York, people who are not from it.
Totally.
Which makes me sad because I'm from New York. It's funny how the people from New York kind of feel like a tourist because you're not supposed to get here that way.
Right.
But tell me about, since you're going to go into interiors, and since I'm looking at a beautiful, actually, there's little Baldwin-esque moments behind you with the trellis and the column, and I know you're Baldwin. What is your happy vibe at home?
It's it's kind of a relaxed, lot of antiques,
Mhm.
a lot of plants, a lot of flowers. I love simple, honest pieces like Gustavian painted pieces. I love painted floors. You know, I don't like things that feel too fancy, but at the same time, you know, I
So
love
do you have
myself
Bunny
beautiful
Melon?
fabrics. What's that?
Do you have some Bunny Melon in you?
I do. I
Yeah.
definitely have a little of that. So, you know, I like the kind of unassuming, like nothing should be noticed, but just layered and eclectic without being too dramatic. But you know, I like pieces that have personality and whimsy. I'm not a modernist.
Mhm.
I like the comfort of more contemporary pieces, um, but I definitely like things to have a little bit more of a kind of a casual vintage feel to it. I'm in the process of redoing a house, and I'm going to embrace more color than I'm used to, because typically it's been a lot of blues and grays, and I'm
Um,
embracing more of that, more color. So that's kind of fun.
ooh,
But
ooh.
yeah, well, no, less blue. I'm going to bring in green.
Well, I mean, I'm sure you bring in the green one way or the other.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would love to see your apartment someday, just to see how you navigate the back and forth of those things. Um, would you ever, if somebody wanted to hire you to do a house, would you?
I dabbled in it a little bit, but I got to be honest with you. There's so many of you guys out there that do such amazing jobs that I I'm not sure, because, and this goes back to your original question. What I like about my industry is that when the job is over, it's over. Like, the sofa doesn't come in broken, things aren't 23 weeks delayed, you know, the rug didn't come in
Right.
with a slice, you know, a frayed edge, and then you have to, like, and then when you think you got it all right, the client calls and they want matching waste paper baskets and all these little things that never end. That kind of stuff, like, I don't know that I have the patience for that. I do love design, but I'm pretty happy with my with staying in my lane,
Yeah.
you know.
Um, one thing that's particularly amazing about your lane is that your work, barring somebody standing up in church and saying, I object,
Yeah.
your work is going to be viewed through the lens of joy.
Well, it is. And also it's like, you know, and it's five
Mary,
hours. And it's like, so it's not a long-term commitment. So you can do things for a party under candlelight and ambient lighting that's going to be very different than what you're going to choose to live with on a day in and day out basis.
but nobody's in a bad mood at those.
Generally not. You know, you have a rare exception, but there's no helping those people.
Yeah, yeah. But once they're done, the overwhelming feeling is relief, joy. It went well. It was beautiful, and pride. I'm
Yeah.
sure what you do makes the celebrant or the hosts feel very proud
Yeah.
to have your work represent them.
That's the idea, is to kind of crawl in their head and, you know, have their guest walk into a space and really, yes, have it feel very much like them.
What's the smallest event you've ever done?
You know, dinner for four. Yeah, you know, I'll do stuff for a client, you know, clients, dinner parties, small dinner parties.
Those are good clients.
Those are good clients. I
Yeah,
like them. I don't do
yeah.
that for everybody.
Um, yeah. Okay. So, what's the future for Flower Flash?
I can't tell you.
But there,
There's a future. Keep doing it. You
there
know, we got to get through the winter. But yeah, the book just came out. So I'm taking a few weeks off, kind of figuring out what's next. with the Flash, but you know, I love doing them, so they're going to continue to happen. You know, it's
And I saw that you could buy some of the prints, which actually I
yeah,
thought
yeah. We sell the prints, we sell
pretty
them on our
wonderful.
website, and so that's
I love
great.
the stop signs, the
Yeah,
stop name,
those are
and
fun.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, like yeah, that. Please do more of that for people like me to, to buy and hang.
Yeah, definitely will do.
Um, would you ever do TV?
Yeah, I do it. Why not? I mean, I'll do anything once or twice. Let's see
Um,
how.
I think I think it would be a great marriage. The I mean, you can't with your clients, right? Because they would never.
No, a lot of we sign a lot of NDAs, so a lot of good projects and don't never
But
see
the
the light of
flashes
day.
you could do,
Yeah.
and that would be kind of a perfect size thing to film. Like, I would love to watch that. I think somebody's got to do that immediately. I don't know, because you could, you know, you said you're impatient, like things to be done.
Yeah.
There would be no other way that you could film it as you did. I mean, you'd have to film extra things around it, just a
Right.
little, but it would be the doing of it, and then it'd be in the can, the trash can, as it were. Is somebody else calling you right now?
Okay. Somebody called me.
All right, everybody say you're a magnet phone call. So, so you can't really tell us what's going on with the Flash, but are you dedicated to innovating?
Am I dedicated to
Mm-hmm.
innovating? Yeah, I'd say so. Because I don't, I like, I need to always move on to what's next. It's just in my blood, like there's always figuring out what that is and how to keep things fresh and keep things relevant, but keep things just interesting for me,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, I hope that 2022 is interesting for you.
in a
I'm
good way,
so excited,
please.
I'm so excited to have the book, and yeah, everybody has to get that book.
Yeah, buy the book.
Buy the book, people,
Buy the book.
on the website,
That's right.
or the prints. The prints are really beautiful.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I love getting to speak to you. You're an artist.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So.
No, I really appreciate it.
My sister.
I wish that when I grow up, I will throw a party with you.
Anytime.
Lemony blowout.
You just let me know when.
All right. Well, kisses. Happy holiday.
Thank you. You too. Happy New Year.
Are you doing anything fun, or are you working?
No, I'm working. I've got 2 events this weekend, so yeah, no rest for the wicked.
Do you post vignettes of little things on Instagram?
Yeah, we've kind of
Get
taken the
around.
holiday off, but we definitely do. We keep things
Okay.
in stories and in the gallery. Yeah.
So I need to check you out over the weekend.
Sounds good. Well, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Hope you're doing something fun. Thank you.
Nothing, which is very fun.
Oh, that's the best.
Usually, if I can get caviar in a baked potato, I
Yeah,
that.
that's all you need.
The
Some
best.
champagne.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Kiss.
All right. Well,
Let
thank
you
you so
go.
much.
Return your phone calls.
I'm dreading it. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.